Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. As of May 17th, Saskatchewan's vaccination progress means the cautious reopening of many restaurants and bars across the province. Behind the scenes, people have been preparing for the worst, but they're hopeful for the best. One of the leaders behind the scenes is Warehouse District's Leasa Gibbons. Her team has been critical to a smooth, coordinated rollout of information to businesses. I know we've all got cabin fever, but there's so much to look forward to. I'm looking forward to summer, and I hope you are too. So let's get into it. Leasa, how's it going?
It's going great, actually. How are you doing?
I'm cautiously optimistic, more cautious than optimistic.
I think that is the phrase of the day. I've been saying that over and over and over.
Part of the reason I wanted to bring you back onto the podcast is because last time I felt we got a really nice overview of what's happening in the Warehouse District, which is where many of the Regina breweries are located. And I feel you have a unique perspective in terms of what's going on in the business community, but also the neighborhood and kind of the tenor and the mood of the people in that area of the city. And I kind of wanted to ask you, what's going on in Warehouse District for the slow reopening of the city?
You know, it's an interesting place because we really saw folks get excited over the 3-step reopen plan as we reopen Saskatchewan this summer. And summer's great because we have a bit of leeway to try some pilot and ease back into what our new normal may look like. But really, we look at it from a 2-week window. I know they're reviewing these as kind of a 3-week every stage. And we're cautiously optimistic that these stages will happen in the order and in the time that's been described. So hopefully everyone has received their second shot by the end of July, or everyone who's willing to receive their second shot has done so. And really, that's going to be key. It's up to the people of Saskatchewan to really reopen the Warehouse District and to see our city move forward. But we take it on a 2-week view at this point. Where are we? What's what? You know, everyone has made plans right now to go to the lake, to go camping if you have that privilege in your life. And when I've talked to business owners, they're interested in seeing their patios reopen. A little cautious on the indoor dining if we're talking restaurants and breweries, but knowing that they're working towards fall. So they may not see the full summer revenue that they would normally see in a year pre-COVID, but really working that up to hopefully a new normal fall.
I know when it comes to cycles for the breweries, for craft beer, we've seen enough years to understand Easter long weekend is kind of the little kickoff, and May long weekend, which will be the weekend after this podcast comes out, is go time. Like hair on fire, running as fast as you can, brewing as fast as you can, go, go, go. And we've kind of got these weights on our legs. And I wanted to understand, maybe from your perspective, what you were hearing or seeing from the brewers or other businesses in terms of kind of expanding on what you had already alluded to, that cautious optimism, like stay on my patio. Don't necessarily come in, stay on my patio.
Yeah, I mean, I was just in a discussion group about business yesterday, and the one thing I am constantly reminding folks is that small business owners really care about the humanity of their business, from their employees to their customers. And I should phrase that I think the really great businesses are focused on those things. And you really see that reflected as we enter into this reopen piece. And I just talked to a business owner and you know, hoping for some great patio days. cautious on the indoor, still going to follow the guidelines, of course, um, but not sure what the consumer confidence is at this point. So we're going to do a little survey starting next week to kind of gauge consumer confidence. So how are people feeling about re-engaging with businesses at this point of COVID in Saskatchewan?
I would be really excited to see those numbers. When I look at social media, it's the polemics of the people who have no accountability and just want to reopen and pretend nothing ever happened, and the people who are deeply scared, and there's not a lot of middle ground. Is there something you might be expecting to see in those reports? Or are you looking at US numbers and seeing kind of what they are forecasting or looking at to make your evaluations?
So we did the survey last year. So this will be our second year. We have a baseline established, essentially, knowing a little bit more about this virus. And I think your summary of what we're looking at with consumers is right on. I think folks right now are still pretty cautious. I'm seeing that reflected in business owners' plans to reopen, that they're going to do as much open air as possible, knowing that that's going to be the toe in the water as we're all fully vaccinated and coming back out into places. Speaking with my American colleagues, some of them are in states where they haven't had a full mask mandate. Some of these things, don't ask, don't tell kind of policies are in place. So,
what do you mean?
And I should say that's in relation to vaccinations. It's been a big discussion. Are you going to ask your staff if they've been vaccinated? Are you only going to let people back in your building who've been vaccinated? And the resounding from many downtown office towers, from governors to mayors, has been, we're just going to hope for the best and see how that works out. It's kind of scary. Yeah.
Hoping for the best is denialism. It's like toxic positivity. It's like everything is going to be okay. No,
yeah.
Maybe get vaccinated.
It's unfortunate that it's become such a politicalized discussion, but unfortunately, here we are. So,
I think when people say, "Well, it's so politicized," I'm like, that is normal. We saw it before. I remember in university when we were studying the plague, and we read this book, The Journal of the Plague Year by Daniel Defoe, and we were reading and studying the Black Death, and then we were looking at the 1918 flu and the Spanish flu, and we see a contingent of society who, for whatever reason, science and facts don't matter, and they're just like, damn the torpedoes, I'm just going to live my life, and they deny. But I think for the vast majority of people, they want vaccines. They want to be safe. They want to come back to it. So to see political leaders bending the knee to people who are loud and angry is very concerning to me.
But not a surprise, maybe. I mean, the United States, this has not been probably their most successful or proudest handling of a crisis, I would say. Things are getting better, and I feel some confidence. I wonder if it's not false confidence at this point, and I would applaud our Saskatchewan Health Authority on the way they've handled the vaccine rollout and really making it about that sticker and that selfie. And we're seeing a good uptake of vaccinations, so I'm excited about that. I'm hoping it will continue, and I am interested to see what the hesitancy rate will look like.
I want to highlight something awesome that your team did last year that I still think about, and I'm like, that's true leadership. And that was the packages you got out to the businesses with the masks, the signage, the PPE, the stickers, the hand sanitizer, like very early on when people were still kind of reeling and stunned and like they'd taken a shot to the ribs and they were winded. Your team was already running full speed. And I was just like, we need that kind of leadership. We need that kind of action. And I guess the question follows up is, what are you guys doing now?
We've been bantering that. It was almost an easy thing for us to see as a challenge for businesses as they reopened early in the pandemic. But what are businesses going to need now? What's our new reopen kit that we can provide to welcome back visitors to the warehouse district? We've been back and forth on that. We just don't know at this point. And I think that's one of the benefits of the bid is that we can be fairly nimble and responsive to businesses in the situation. And the truth is, this is ever evolving, and we just don't have that answer. Will they require a mask mandate going forward? Is that going to be part of our lives now? Hand sanitizer. Hopefully we retain some of those clean and safe protocols that many businesses have added into their protocol, and us as consumers practice as well in the businesses that we visit. We simply don't know. We think it is a bit of messaging at this point and preparing our businesses to welcome back customers. I mean, we've seen the rise of the Karen, and it's a challenge. If you have an 18 or 19-year-old working and as a frontline worker, how they now provide customer service to someone who may be angry about something entirely different, but you are the outlet today. And so how do we best prepare our workforce to come back in this new normal?
Are you going to be hosting meetings with business owners to kind of like give them key messages or coaching, kind of that emotional IQ piece?
Yeah, we're working on a few different things. And one thing that has worked well, one of many things that have worked well for us, has been the sense of community in the warehouse district. Like never before have businesses come together to support each other. And we may not have all of those answers, but the good news is that someone in the group does and has been willing to share with other businesses. So definitely that's been one of the successes that we found, and definitely are bringing that back. We generally pull them out into sectors, but what we found was sometimes it doesn't matter if you're a brewery or a clothing store. When you have a Karen come in, you may have something that you can share that's helpful, or, how are you dealing with clean and safe now with customers? All of that is pretty basic across the board. So it really builds that community and synergy where when you shop at one store, whether it is brick and mortar, they can then recommend where you should go for a beer after, where you should get your favorite taco from. All of those things that are growing and emerging in our district.
One thing you just said triggered in my brain a thought and a conversation that I'd had with Mark about the brewery. You had said when we're talking about asking your employees to be vaccinated or asking them if they have been, and then you're talking about the perspective of businesses in trying to move forward. And part of me, the cynical part of me says, if someone is flippant about the vaccine, how are they going to be treating rules like food safety? How are they going to be handling my food? Will it be clean? And when I think to our brewery, Mark and I had a half-hour discussion yesterday about Saccharomyces, Pediococcus, Lactobacillus, coliform bacteria, and all these minute factors that can completely screw up your beer because the nature of sanitization is so important. And you need a schedule because you can't just use acid to clean out your tanks. And you have to change up your cleaning protocol because the bacteria that you're dealing with, the yeast that you're dealing with will mutate. And I'm like, oh, and the virus will mutate. So you have to understand the schedule. Like, it feels like brewers innately have this knowledge in their brains, and it connects directly to that knowledge of how do we manage COVID. So I say to myself, when it comes to other businesses like restaurants, hand washing protocol. Like this isn't hard stuff. And I'm just ranting now. I'm sorry, Lise. It didn't lead to a question.
You're completely on point with the conversations that I've had, and as people ask me, and I get asked often, I'm concerned about COVID. I'm concerned about the place that I'm ordering from. Where should I order from?
Really, you've had that conversation?
I get asked that often. So there's some folks who have been to Craven and play the roulette wheel and are not worried about that because they have partied at Craven for the past 5 years and they know they've built up whatever tolerance. But I often ask, have you looked in their bathroom? How clean is their bathroom? Have you looked at that tiny, and if they're not paying attention to the small details in their restaurant, I mean, I'm not saying who's great and who's not great. You can get the app and look at their rating on Tamati or whatever it's called, and you can get a really good sense of what the health inspectors had to say. Generally, those have to be fairly major infractions to get listed on the app. So they may not catch every staff person not washing their hands, to your point. But really, you develop a relationship with the places that you interact with. And I think that's what we're going to see going forward, that brand loyalty for folks who've really put in the work and the effort. I respect the heck out of Rebellion and the work that you've done, not only as a brewery, but also work on social issues. It was funny, we had this question come up and I had written this whole long piece about Rebellion and the leadership role that Mark and the whole crew has taken on these issues. And not only that, but done the work, brought in folks to talk about social issues and found ways to implement it in your own organization. And it's obvious in the fact that Vanessa is kicking ass and making beer. Like, I see that and we celebrate that, and we have to be willing to take risks. We cannot please everyone in the world. Not everyone is going to be your customer. So know who you are and be that organization.
When it comes to consumers and they're thinking about where they want to spend their dollars, they're excited to get out. Who are some of the businesses that you think deserve a little shot in the arm coming out into next week?
Are you asking me to pick my favorite children?
Well, I was just going to throw it on there to say, look, I've been drinking way more coffee than beer in this pandemic just to stay awake. And Caliber has been like my go-to. I have drank an ungodly amount of coffee this pandemic. And every single time I go in, I get something fresh, something new. And I discovered their new Mexican mocabe beans. Single source. Chocolatey, nutty, delicious. It's what I've been drinking all morning.
That is, Caliber is one of the hidden gems in the warehouse district and in our city, quite frankly. They are doing an amazing job. And all of and they're often featured at many of our local coffee shops, which is fantastic. But all of those folks who've been hustling it, doing takeout, curbside, small business folks are exhausted right now. So if you can take a moment and pick up some donuts to go, cinnamon bun, get your coffee at Brewed or Our Spot or Everyday Kitchen, or pop into Queen City Cakes and get, all of these folks have been working in their business, working on their business, and working for their business. And they're exhausted. So we need coffee. I'm sure they're drinking all the coffee too.
I have not had Queen City Cakes on the podcast yet. I think it's a major blind spot of mine. Tell me a little bit more about them. Like, what are they up to?
Jared is a magical unicorn. He and I are very similar in that we love new adventures. And I think you're going to see some exciting news come out from them in the next year or two. Always working on fresh and exciting things. And I honestly have had to curb my Queen City cake habit because pandemic body is a real thing, and I need to actually move it more often than just moving my jaw, either talking or eating. Those are both occupational hazards, I may say. But they've added ice cream, they've added drinks. It's amazing.
Deadly. So what's next for Warehouse? I feel like we've covered the panopticon of issues, but what's big on your horizon?
Some exciting news, I think, is the revitalization of Dudney Avenue. That work has been ongoing through the pandemic as we struggle to keep businesses open and support them. We've also been advocating for that project to start soon. So fingers crossed, we could see something by Q3 of 22 with actual shovels in the ground.
What's that going to look like?
What will that look like? I think that's the work over the next year. We do have some preliminary plans. So the complete street, you will see Dudney narrowed. You will see it more pedestrian friendly. These are all things we need. I know some folks are concerned that there's not going to be enough room for their car. There will be plenty of room for you to drive up Dudney still. It will be fine. There will be street trees. Won't it be nice to have some greenery in the Warehouse District? We're super excited. And it is the starting place, the backbone, the catalyst to see development on the yards. We really need that first step so that we can really sell the yards to developers.
The rail yards.
I'm really excited about the yards and the interim use that we have planned. We're applying for a huge grant. Hopefully we receive said grant, and we look forward to implementing something I'm calling the Open Space Lab, a place where we can test outdoor activation brought together by the community. So it could be a skate park, could be arts, could be culture, could be all of those things together in a portion of that space.
I know this is a question you might not want to touch with a 10-foot clown pole, but are they still talking about renaming Dudney Avenue?
Yeah, I think that is a question in the community. What is our response, and what's the city's response to Dudney Avenue? Now, it is a major street that goes through our whole city, would result in some challenges if we did rename it. Something should come out of it, whether it is some thoughtful discussion and some implementation, whether it's let's tell the story of Dudney, the good, the bad, the ugly, which is mostly bad and ugly, if I'm being honest, and let's actually act on some truth and reconciliation points along Dudney. That would make a huge impact. We could change the name and check a box. I would really like to see some activation that's more than just, we changed the name, check the box, we moved on. It's gone from our minds, except for the old timers who are still hating the fact that we had to change the name because of some woke individuals. Let's actually do something about it and not just, And I had a business owner say, okay, fine, change the name, but replace it with something with D, because NOD means something in this community, and folks identify with that. So let's not lose that in the discussion. I thought that was an interesting piece.
I haven't even thought about that before.
Yeah, and we like to say ROD because we're right on Dudney. This is where the action is.
Oh, I like that too. I know Rebellion's place on Dudney is kind of at the corner of Broad, and it's a lot of action. And I know that when you said they're going to narrow the street, I enjoy that because I sprint across that street 3 to 4 times a day, and I've almost been hit, 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. I just had a conversation with the city about that. And as I tell them, I'm going to continue to raise this until something happens. So I've told them we're going to do a tactical urbanism project where we build our own bump out. And I mean, that might be a bit ratchet, but we're here to try things and find the success before you invest $1 million into it, or several million, as the case may be. Let's do some testing. Let's get people on board. It really helps if the whole community can see it, support it, and really build it together.
Maybe this is out of left field. You can tell me no, but in 2022, what about if we close down like the Dudney Strip and have like a big street party with like music and beer and food, like street vendors and artists and live acts, and just turn it into something to like celebrate?
I love it. I love it. Especially as we're about to tear it up. It would be a nice goodbye party to the Dudney we've known and loved, and a welcome to the new Dudney Avenue and the pedestrian-friendly, the new era, I would say, not only for the warehouse district, but for our city. This is a generational opportunity, and we should celebrate the heck out of it.
It could be like a big coming out party or something. Maybe we could get people a jackhammer out part of Dudney and take it home in your pocket. I don't know.
I feel like it would be a hard sell for the city. I personally, I would have a piece of it. I have a piece of the Berlin Wall somewhere at home, and I could put a piece of Dudney right beside it.
I love to hear it, Leasa. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I love our discussions.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Rebels. Thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, The Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province. You can find them at thesaskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.